Well, good morning if you're watching this in the morning, or good afternoon if you're watching it in the afternoon, or good night if you're watching this in the evening. If you're not real sure when you're watching this, boy, I'm such a goofball. Well, then, see that? Good morning. Surely you're sure when you're watching this. Today we're doing something just a tad bit different than what you're probably used to on my channel. Typically I do cinefilm. I shoot it, I process it, I scan it, and I show it to you. And we do experiments with cine cameras. But what you probably don't know is I also shoot a ton of still film. Today I want to delve just a tiny bit into that world, and I want to talk about my favorite pocket camera. That's the Olympus XA. Yeah, I know. That was really goofy. The good thing is most of you probably forward through that goofy intro anyway. It feels really good to be back here in front of the camera. I took a tiny hiatus. As some of you know, I took a little vacation with my family. We went to northern Indiana. I visited my mom and stepdad and my sister and my awesome nieces and nephews and a lot of family up there. So we had a lot of fun. I was gone for almost 2 weeks. And when I got back, well, I just kind of decided, in all honesty, that I wanted a little bit of a break. So that's exactly what I did. Aside from my last live stream last Sunday, I haven't posted a video, and we're coming up on 2.5, maybe 3 weeks. That's really unlike me. I like to post at least one video every week. But after almost 185 videos in about 2.5 years, it was time for a little tiny break. And I'm glad I did because I'm refreshed. I feel really good. I got a ton of work ahead of me. That also didn't help my return to YouTube. Been processing and scanning a whole lot of film for people. I have 2 children, if you don't know that already, that take up a lot of my time. And I have a ton of adult responsibilities as well. Anyway, enough about all of that. Here I am. I'm back. No idea what that was. I'm back and I'm ready to get back on that horse, and let's trot into, I don't know, into what we're doing today. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what I do in 35mm. I'm a huge, or as my New York buddies would say, I'm a huge fan of 35mm still film. Cine film as well, but I don't have any 35mm cine cameras anymore. But I do shoot a lot of still film. I typically, if I'm going to go out and for the sole purpose of shooting some beautiful pictures, or what I consider beautiful pictures, most of the time I'll take my Nikon F3 and maybe grab one of my AE1s or something like that to take with me. But I undoubtedly will also have this little fella here in my pocket. This is an Olympus XA 35mm rangefinder. It's probably one of the coolest cameras I've ever shot with. I got it from my uncle, who recently passed away. I miss him every day, but he used to really keep an eye out at thrift stores and garage sales and things for little camera items, and he happened upon a box of cameras. I believe it was at a thrift store for really cheap, I think somewhere in the $10 range. And he picked the box up, and when he came to town, he brought it to me, and inside that box was a bunch of cameras, camera parts, and this little gem. I had never shot with it before prior to that, and I'm so happy that I was able to get one of these, especially from somebody I admired so much. And ever since then, I really just had a lot of fun with it. Let me tell you what it is. It's a 35mm rangefinder. It boasts, once you slide open the dust cover, which is also doubles as the power on and power off button, it boasts a Olympus, or an Olympus Zuiko, I believe it's pronounced, or Zuiko 35mm f2.8 lens right in front. It is a non-reflex, as most 35mm cameras are, which means you look through the viewfinder on top and it parallax views relatively well. So I'm looking through the viewfinder, but I'm not looking through the actual lens itself. This camera operates on 2 1.5 volt batteries. It's the same little batteries. In fact, it's the same batteries I use in my little wired lapel microphone. It's the LR44 button cells. You can buy them anywhere. The dollar store sells them, any pharmacy or large chain discount stores, online, anywhere. And they're very inexpensive, but they are the tiny, let me see if I can thumbnail this open, which I can. It has the little slot, the little screw slot at the bottom, and I can't get that open, but watch this. I'm going to get a penny. And there it is, a penny. So what we do is just unscrew this little, well, this little screw cover on the bottom of the camera, and you see you have your two 1.5 volt batteries stacked, face down or positive up. And since we're at the bottom of this camera, let me just show you, let me get this back in here. It features a couple of little interesting things at the bottom. Let me close it up here. That just it prevents any dust or whatever getting inside the lens area here. It also helps you prevent from accidentally firing the camera. So if you look at the bottom here, there's three little options here: a plus 1.5, a check, a little dot next to the check, they're little bullet points, and a self timer. Now there's a little lever right here in the bottom corner, and as you move the lever, it clicks into one of these three little bullet points right there. So the plus 1.5, that's a backlight control, much like your Cine cameras have or the Super 8 cameras have, where it's going to add about a stop and a half to your exposure. In other words, it's going to open your aperture about 1.5 stops. And what that was for is when you're taking a photo of something or somebody that's in front of a bright light, if you let the camera do its own metering, it's more than likely going to underexpose your photo. So if you put it on plus 1.5, we're going to open the aperture up a little bit, so no matter what the camera tells you the proper exposure is, it's going to override it by a stop and a half, give you a bit more light, thus properly lighting your subject. The next button down here, or the next click, is check, and when you click it here, you can hear the beep. Even me with tinnitus, I can hear that beep, so I won't leave it on there too long, but you see the little red light go on? That's telling you that your batteries are good. So let's get off of that annoying beep, and let's put it on self-timer. Very self-explanatory. Self-timer, when your camera's open and you are wound, ready to go, and you click your shutter release, which is this orangish, I think it was at one point supposed to be darker orange, but little button here, and it's a flat button, and it's a real easy press. But when you press that, you see the light and you hear the beeps. Now, according to the manual, it's about a 12-second delay. According to my particular camera, this is more of a 15-second delay, and you'll see, and it just fired. So it gives you about 12 to 15 seconds to jump in front of the camera yourself. If you're like me and you like to steal the show and everybody laughs at you when you do, then feel free to use the self-timer. Now, this is an Aperture priority camera, and what I mean by that is the camera picks the shutter speed for you, and what you have to do is select your preferred f-stop or aperture opening. So over here on my right side, your left side right now, there's a little slider up and down right here. Now what that is that's your lens aperture opening or your f-stop adjustments. It goes anywhere from f2.8, like I said earlier, this is an f2.8 lens, all the way up to f22 or down to. The higher the f-stop number, the tighter your aperture is and the less light that's going to be allowed to come into your lens. So what you do is, based on the setting that you're going to be photographing, if it's a bright day, you know, we all know the sunny 16 rule and whatnot. If it's a bright day and you're outside and you're on f16 or f22, because you know that's probably the right setting, you click the shutter release, the camera's going to do the shutter speed for you. Now in the case here where I only have my little studio lighting and I put it on f22 or f16, you certainly can hear the delay. Let me show you, see if you can hear this. You hear the tick tick. That's definitely not a fast shutter speed. In fact, if you look through the viewfinder on the left-hand side, there's a a meter and a floating hand that goes up and down that tells you what your shutter speed is going to be. So that's actually one way you can adjust your shutter speeds a little bit if you really wanted to. You can look through the viewfinder, and while looking at your shutter speed dial here, you can move this aperture dial. So right now, if I'm down here just looking at my one studio light, I'm being told that I'm at 1 second of a shutter speed, which is incredibly slow, and you're going to have a blurry picture. Now, if I boost it all the way up to f2.8, I'm now being told my shutter speed is somewhere around 1/30th, maybe 1/40th, which I hope you could hear that is a lot quicker than what we did when we were at f22. Anyway, that's what aperture priority is. The camera is giving you the priority of your aperture or control of your aperture. There's also shutter speed priority, which is the exact opposite of aperture priority. We also have the ability to focus. It's not a fixed focus lens. It's designed kind of so you could shoot from the hip or down and look down at the camera, or if you are going to look down at the camera, you have a focus arm right here under the lens, and it just goes, well, maybe a ½ inch each way. And then if you look at the top of the camera, I'm going to give you close-ups of all this. Obviously, you've seen that by now. You can see your focus distances. With this particular camera, they are in feet. They go from about 2.8 feet to, which is about 0.8-ish, 0.85 meters. That's the minimum distance you want to be able to get a halfway decent focus, to infinity. Somewhere in the just before infinity, you'll see a red 8. Now that's your sweet spot. So if you're at f8 or above, typically you're going to be in relatively good focus at somewhere around 6 to 12 feet distance, somewhere in that range. So you have a kind of a little safe zone or a buffer zone in there. You also have the ability to adjust your film's ASA or your ISO, the film speed. Most cameras will do this. This one you can adjust by, there's also another little dial or little lever, click lever right here, just barely underneath the lens. And let me click it and you will hear it. You hear the little, yep. That's adjusting your film's ISO, or the speed of your film. This one goes from ASA 25 to ASA 800, which is the same as ISO. ASA was the old standard, ISO is the newer standard. So you can, in essence, sort of kind of force the camera to do some crazy things for you as well. Up here you'll see I have some of my favorite film stocks that I've already shot. I just have the little tail sticking out. But each of them have their own ISO markings. That's 400, that's 200, that's ISO 100, and my Ilford HP5 is also ISO 400. So if you want to adjust the film speed in your camera in order to maybe let in more light or underexpose or push-pull in the camera, you can set your ISO rating on the front of your camera to, you don't have to shoot it at what they call box speed. If I wanted to shoot HP5 at 200 to sort of overexpose it, I would simply set my camera's ISO to 200 and then let the camera do all of its other auto work and shoot like you normally would with a 400 speed film, or meter like you normally would with a 400 speed film, and you're going to overexpose your film to 200, ISO 200. Because the camera's thinking you have ISO 200 speed film in there, which needs a tick more light than does 400, so your shutter's going to stay open a little bit longer. Just a little bit. When you're not using the camera, you always want to keep this little front dust cover closed. Not only does it keep stuff out of the lens, but it also turns the camera off so you're no longer using your batteries. Now to load the film, and I'm not going to load a roll because quite frankly, I think everyone knows how to load a roll of film by now. But your film rewind dial here, you just kind of pull it up like you would a regular SLR, and it pops the back of the camera open. Now this camera doesn't read DX codes. See this code here on the back of your roll of film? So that's why you set your ISO manually at the front of the camera. Simply pull your film across, tuck it into a little bit into one of the slots, start winding it. You pop your film rewind down, close it up, and you click and wind till you see the one. You're ready to go. You're ready to shoot. This camera weighs about 8 ounces without a roll of film in it. Plus or minus just a little bit. That's about 225 grams. And it's extremely small. I mean, it fits in the palm of the hand, will fit into most overhead storage compartments, into most pockets, purses or backpacks, or, you know, can attach it onto your side. They're just such an easy carry camera. It also boasts, if you should be so lucky as to have or found one, flash. Now, I rarely use a flash with any of my 35mm work because most of the time I take pictures outside. In the event that I feel like taking a picture inside, or I want that flashy look, or I need a strange flashy look, gives you sort of that 90s feel, you can attach a flash right to the side of this camera. Now, there are a couple of flashes for these cameras. I have 2 of them. If I'm being honest, I can't find the other one. It's around here somewhere. The most common flash for this little camera is the A11. And what you do is, if you'll look at the side of the camera, there's 2 little pins here at the bottom, little electrical pins, and then there's a little screw port right here above it. Now, on the side of your flash, it's the opposite. It's the male version, or the female pins, or this pin connectors, and then the little screw right here on the side. So all you do is you just attach it, and there's a thumb screw on the other side of the flash. Screw it down. Now we have a Olympus XA with flash, with the A11 flash. Now, to operate the flash, you go back over here to your f-stop adjustments, and when you get up to 2.8, you give it one more nudge, because right above it you can see where it says flash. Once you give it a nudge, watch over here, it pops your flash up. Now, or it pops up your flash. It lets you know when you're ready. It lets you know that you're in flash mode. So when you wind the camera, this takes about 5 to 7 seconds to recharge. Well, according to the manual, mine is a little bit quicker. And then we have to open the camera. Hit your button. Boom, we got a flash. I know you saw that because I could see it on my screen. Give it a couple of seconds. We are charged, ready to go. Now, the flash is real simple to take off and on. You just simply unscrew it here on the side, like so, and pop it off. Close the front of your camera. Put this back in your bag if you're done with it. And to turn it off, you just push that top back in. This flash operates on one single AA battery. I recommend taking that battery out if you're not going to use flash. Same with the camera batteries. On the top of the camera, like I said earlier, this orangish looking flat button here is your real easy touch shutter release button. The side over here is your film rewind, and in order to rewind your film, you want to depress the little film rewind release button on the bottom here. Very, very much like your SLR cameras. And then on the side here, the back side, is your film advance. Wind it up. And then just above that, on the very top, you can see how many photos you have remaining. Just like it's like a, wants to be a big boy camera. You have your strap right here on the side if you should so choose to use one. So this camera operates on the parallax focusing or the double image focusing. You know what I mean when you look through the camera and you're at infinity, but your subject is 6 feet away. It looks like you're looking at two of your subject kind of, superimposed over one another. So when you adjust your focus lever here on the bottom, your images go closer together or farther apart. So what you're trying to accomplish is you want those two images to become one image. I know you've heard of it. I know you've seen it. It's probably one of my favorite focusing methods outside of maybe the split image, because it makes it real easy to get it right. Now what I did is I took this camera, I've had it for several years now. I took it with me to Indiana and I kept it in my pocket. And I have also used it over the last couple years. I don't have thousands and thousands of photos to show you today, thankfully, because none of you would sit through that, neither would I. But I do have just a few that I want to show you that I captured with this camera over the last couple of years. Without too much more yakety, let me show you just a few photos that I was able to capture over the last couple of years with my Olympus XA.
Anywhere you go, you belong. Anywhere you say, anywhere.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. If I forgot to mention something, which there's no doubt that I did, and you have a question regarding this camera or this flash, leave it for me. That question, that is, down in the comments below. I'd love to talk to you about it. If you like talking live, I do a live stream every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, where we kind of mainly just wrap film. We talk about the analog medium that we all love so much. So if you want to catch a live stream, try Sunday at 2 p.m. I had a really good one last Sunday where we talked about the potential of a Filmboy24 hosted Super 8mm film festival, short film festival. So that's another thing we're working on. I have a review video coming up that will probably be in a couple of weeks. It's a portable scanner for scanning 35mm negatives and slides and things like that. We will talk about that in a couple of weeks. I do have a found film coming up shortly, probably in the next few days, that you may or may not be interested in. We're back into the Cameraman Mike sound film box set. Let's see what's going on with Joey and company. And I hope you enjoyed this particular little episode. If you did, can you do me a favor on the way out? Tap that like button and or subscribe if you feel like I've earned it. Having a lot of fun. Very close to 3,000 subscribers thanks to you all, not me, not thanks to me. I'm only the goofball back here. And don't forget, please don't forget, that was so bad. I will see each and every one of you, hopefully, on the very next go around.